Okay, fine. So we were doing steps in conducting scientific research, and we have done the first step, conceptualizing a problem. Second one was collecting data. Now we are going to do the third step, which is drawing conclusions. Now you all understand then that we have collected the data. I have told you that there will be four aspects we have to explain. First, the participants in the study, then the methods of data collection. Third is tools to be used in research. And fourth one was what? Procedure for data collection, right? After collecting data, what will be the third step now? Drawing conclusions. That means taking out the results. Obviously, if you are doing any scientific research, we have to get the results. And now this is the third step. Now, what are the methods through which we can analyze data? For drawing conclusion, we have to analyze the data that we have collected, right? So here we are drawing conclusion with the help of or with the use of certain statistical procedures, right? Statistical procedures, you all understand the graphical representations. Whether we talk about the pie chart, whether we talk about the bar diagram, the cumulative frequencies, all you are aware of, all these words are already into your knowledge, right? So by applying certain statistical procedures, we can analyze the data. The purpose of analysis is to verify a hypothesis and draw conclusions accordingly. Now, why we are analyzing certain data? Because we want to verify our hypothesis. Hypothesis, you all remember, it is a tentative solution to a problem, or we can say it is an assumption we used to make whenever we start with any research, right? Now, what is the fourth one? Revising research conclusions. Now we have drawn the conclusion, we got the result. Now there is the last step, revising research conclusion. Now what is the meaning of this? The researcher may have begun the study with a hypothesis that there exists a relationship between viewing violence on television, yes, and aggression among children. You all remember, we have suppose taken this hypothesis that if a child is watching too much violence on television, aggression among children will increase. Fine. So we have done the research, we have done this experiment, and now we came up with the conclusion which is not supporting our hypothesis. Are you getting my point? Hypothesis is clear, but what is happening? We got some results, we got some conclusions that are not supporting our hypothesis. Now, what is the need? There is a need of revise the research to re-verify, right? Now, how do we do this? We will make certain changes in our hypothesis. We will make certain modifications into our research, whether it is related to the participants, whether it is related to the selection of tools, whether it is related to the method of inquiry. It could be related to any change because we are verifying the hypothesis now. We are verifying the conclusions so that we can prove our hypothesis, right? If in the very first attempt hypothesis is proved, there is no need to revise the conclusions. There is no need to revise the results, right? So this is all about the steps in conducting any scientific research. Fine, children. Now let us come upon the next topic, page number 26. I am not explaining all the things in very much detail as we have done this chapter twice earlier. Now the next topic is alternative paradigm of research. Just try to understand the basic things under this heading. What they are saying that there is a different method has emerged in the recent years. And what is the name of that method is interpretive. Just note it down somewhere or underline in the book itself, page number 26, first column. Second paragraph of alternative paradigm of research, a word has been given, interpretive. Now what they are saying, this is a different method which has emerged in the recent years. What does it mean? It emphasizes understanding over explanation and prediction. Now I think you people can relate with the words, with the terminology that I'm using. We have done explanation, prediction. Just now we have done under which heading? Just give your answers to yourself only. We have done explanation and prediction under the goals of methods of inquiry in this chapter only, right? Now this method, which is known as interpretive, it is emphasizing understanding over explanation and prediction. Now try to get the meaning. See, they are saying that in psychology, it is not possible to study human behavior objectively. Are you getting my point? Because human behavior is very complex, first of all, right? And there are certain ethical, there are certain moral issues or values exist which we cannot violate, or we can say it is very inhuman to violate. I just give you an example to understand this. Suppose a mother lost her child in any calamity or in any accident, right? So it is not morally or ethically right to prepare a questionnaire, right? To prepare an interview and just get to her and start asking the question. So there are certain situations, there are certain behaviors which cannot be studied objectively or scientifically. If I use this word, it would not be incorrect. So this method, interpretive method, is saying that these try to develop more and more understanding, more and more subjectivity as compared to objectivity, or as compared to prediction or explanation or measuring something or verifying something. So basically just try to understand that we need to understand the subjective interpretation of the reality. The goal here is to explore the different aspects of human experiences and behavior without attempting to disturb its natural flow, right? So there are two kind of things we can compare: the scientific and interpretive tradition. Yes, they are comparing the interpretive and scientific tradition. Both are related, both are concerned with studying human behavior or experiences, right? But what about personal experience and behavior? As a student of psychology, you may ask the question, why am I feeling sad, right? You may ask certain questions, why it is happening to me. So it couldn't be, studied altogether scientifically. Certain subjectivity will be there. Subjectivity means individual differences will be there. We cannot predict in psychology that this kind of thing is happening to a person, so he will behave in this particular manner only in the coming future. There is no 100% assurance. Are you getting my point? So simply the interpretive tradition or interpretive term means that to develop more and more understanding, subjectivity as compared to prediction or objectivity or explaining something scientifically. Got the point? Now let us start doing the next topic is nature of psychological data. Now we have studied about that we have collected data during any research. We also draw conclusions out of that data. Now what is the nature of data? The method of data collection used and the characteristics of respondents also influence the nature and quality of data. Whenever we talk about nature of data, the two things are there which is greatly influencing the nature, first of all, and quality of data. What are those two things? First of all, the method of data collection. Whether we are going for survey method, whether we are going for interview method, or whether we are attempting an experimental method. So this is first thing. And second one is The characteristics of respondents. Respondents, individual, are we taking individual, are we taking a group, or the age group consists of young people, the age group consists of old people, so certain, we are exercising certain gender characteristics, are we taking only male, are we taking only female, right? Certain geographical conditions could be there, are we going for rural people, right? So lot of characteristics are there of respondents. So these two things are greatly influencing what? The nature and quality of data. Now in psychology, different types of data or information are collected. Some of these are, there are basically four types of information. First is demographic information, that is very simple. Whenever we take the information related to the subject as his name, age, gender, occupation, locality, caste, religion, very simple general information. This is known as demographic. The second one is physical information. Now this category includes information about ecological conditions, whether the person is living in hilly area, whether he is living in a desert area, right? Mode of economy, the housing conditions, the size of rooms, the facilities available at home, the neighborhood, many things are there. So you can just name few of them. No need to remember each and every word. Just give 3 to 4 examples of each information. This was all about physical information. The third one is physiological data. Physiological data, which is related to the physique, the biological makeup of a certain respondent, whether it is related to his height, weight, galvanic skin resistance, GSR. It is related to the characteristics of skin particularly. This is known as GSR, electrical activity of the brain measured by EEG, right? So you can name some of them: blood oxygen levels, duration of sleep, blood pressure, amount of salivation, running and jumping rates in case of animal studies. Whenever we are taking animals as our subjects, we will go for running and jumping rates of that particular animal. So this is all about physiological data. Do not confuse between physical and physiological. Physical means the ecological, the geographical conditions, and physiological, which is related to your physique. The last one is psychological information. Now, this is the information which is related to the psychological attributes. I have given many examples. It could be related to the intelligence, your aptitude, your interest, your values, emotion, motivation, lots of things are there. So name just few of them. So this is all about the nature of psychological data, and there are certain types of information, right? Now some important methods of psychology. Methods of inquiry in psychology. So let us start with the first one, which is known as observational method. Observational method, as name is suggesting, that we are observing something. I remember I also made you differentiate between to see something and to observe something. I hope many of you must be remember, whenever we perceive something or just see something, it is not intentional. But whenever we are observing something, it is always purposeful or intentional. Right now, you're observing me while giving the lecture. So there is a purpose behind, there is a particular target or goal behind this, that yes, we want to understand the concept explained by the teacher, right? So this is what a kind of observation you all are making right now. To see something, a lot of things are still going in front of you. Maybe some of your family members are passing through that room. Some things are flashing, some light is there. So a lot of things are there, but you are just seeing them. You are not paying attention as it is going in front of our eyes. So this is a very common biological response we are making, right? So just try, this is only for your understanding. No question will be there, as if to see something and to observe something, right? So the first method of inquiry is what? Observational method. Whenever we talk about observational method, there are certain respects in many respects we can differentiate this method. Let us start with the first one, that is known as selection, right? Whenever we observe something, we always select a particular behavior. For example, you may be interested to know how children studying in class 11 spend their time in school, right? This is the topic, this is the theme I want to observe, that how the class 11 students spend their time in school, right? So two things are possible at this stage. As a researcher, what I will see, I will prepare a list of activities and go to the school with a view to finding out their occurrences, right? Because I have also gone through that phase. So I'll prepare a list of activities कि ऐसा करते हैं या ऐसा करते होंगे, इस तरह से time pass करते होंगे. So I'll make a list of certain things, and then I'll go to the school, a real life school, real situation, a natural situation, just to check whether I have made a list, whether the activities which I have included in my list are there or not. This is the one method. Second would be that I don't know what happens in the school. Now the time has changed, so I will just straight away visit some school and I start observing the children, right? I all of a sudden just visit any school and I just silently, quietly observe, particularly class 11 class students, that what these people are doing. Because this is the topic of my research, that how class 11 students pass their time or they do certain activities. Fine, so there are two methods. And this is this process is known as selection, because I have selected the particular things I want to see. कुछ भी अगर आप पढ़ना चाह रहे हैं, कुछ भी अगर आप रिसर्च करना चाह रहे हो, तो it should not be very general, right? It should not be very broad. It should have some narrow perspectives and some specific topics. That is known as what? Selection. The second thing is recording. Now, if I'm observing something, any behavior, any activity, so I should have certain recording devices, right? Nobody has a perfect memory. I cannot remember each and everything, even the minute details which I have observed. So I'll be needing some recording devices, right? What will be that recording devices? It is not always certain equipments, but yes, I can have certain tallies. I'll just make certain tallies. I'll just mark them, right? Or I can take very short notes, telegraphic speech जिसे बोलते हैं ना, छोटे language में छोटे notes में ले सकती हूँ, just to remember later on. Shorthand or symbols, telegraphic speech, as I just said, it is made up of what? I just use the symbols, the short words I can use. I can go for taking photographs, or I can have a video recording. That is, I'm using certain electronic device, right? I can either click some photographs or I can even go for video recording. So these are certain recording devices or recording techniques through which I can maintain my record, which I will refer later on for the accuracy of any research, right? The third one is analysis of data. Now I got the data, I have recorded it. Now I'll be doing the analysis. Analysis means to evaluate the things, to study the things in detail, right? Or to get some meaning out of it. So it is important that for all these things, a skilled observer is required, right? For this, a particular training, a specific training is required. Certain communication and observational skills will be there which are needed. So no person who is not having any training or any skill like this can go for an accurate observation. So observation is a very skilled art, you can say, right? So this was all about certain points which we have to keep in our mind while starting with observational method. Now we'll talk about the types of observation. Types of observation, basically there are two types. In first, we'll talk about naturalistic versus controlled observation. Naturalistic versus controlled. Just try to get meaning out of the words themselves. You don't have to remember the things. Naturalistic, as I just gave you an example, that if I want to study certain students, certain age group students, I'll visit the school there itself. So it is a natural condition. So it will term as a naturalistic observation versus controlled observation. Now, whenever I'm using the word controlled, so I am doing certain experiments in controlled situation, which is artificial in nature, right? As you people have done the test, the experiments in physics, in biology, in chemistry. So all things have been done in certain laboratories, right? And sometimes the conditions are created even in our subject. So that is all controlled condition or artificial conditions. So naturalistic versus controlled observation. Got it? This is the first type. The second one is non-participant versus participant observation. Again, very easy. If you just pay attention, non-participant observation means whenever as a researcher, I'm taking part into that activity, right? And whenever I'm not taking part into that activity, I am just observing the things from a distance, quietly, silently. You people are still not aware that somebody is watching us. That will be what? A non-participant observation. Participant observation, matlab, the observer becomes a part of the school or the group of the people being observed, right? And non-participant में क्या हो रहा है? The person is not taking part, and the respondents are not aware that somebody is watching us. So this is what non-participant observation. Now, after giving or explaining each method, you have to highlight its advantages and disadvantages, right? So whenever we talk about the advantage of observation method, what is it? It enables the researcher to study people and their behavior in a naturalistic situation, right? Generally, observation methods, when we talk about, we take it that we are doing it in a naturalistic condition only. Although there are controlled conditions, but the first impression observation method gives of a naturalistic observation. So we are studying behavior very naturally. No modification, no manipulation, no artificiality is there, right? And what is the disadvantage of this method? The observation method is labor intensive, time consuming, and is susceptible to the observer's bias. Now, what does this mean? First of all, it is labor intensive. You have to, give tasks to certain observers, certain people will be there. So labor intensive, time consuming. Obviously, when you are observing something, that you can take days also, you can take months also, right, to observe certain things. So it is a time consuming process. The third one is very important from psychological point of view, that it is susceptible to the observer's bias. That means if I'm an observer, right, and I'm observing certain activities of students, so whenever we are doing any research, we have to be, first of all, become unbiased. Whenever we are, giving the conclusions partially, we are doing certain partiality in giving the conclusion or the results, automatically it makes the whole process biased, right? Are you getting my point? The meaning of biases. As an observer, I have my own personality, I have my own upbringing, I have my own way to look the things. Suppose I'm just giving you an example that I do not feel right whenever certain things are happening in school. Suppose just let's take an example of gender discrimination, a very common example. As a person, I do not like that boys are sitting next to girls. This is just a very common example, right? But in a research, I have to just observe the activities of the students, that how do they interact with their opposite gender, right? So if I see the things from my perspective, from my point of view, I will make whole process very biased. If I'm feeling it is wrong, then I will always give the conclusions in the same direction. So I have to keep my personality aside. I have to keep my point of views aside, and then I should go for some research or any experiment with a fresh start. I have to do the things from a very unbiased manner, right? So got the things, biases should not be there in doing any kind of research or in doing any kind of study. So this was all about observational method. Now we have to study a lot of methods in this chapter, and we'll start with the rest of the chapters for tomorrow. Ma'am, please.